A cat gives its owner one last hug before being euthanized. Then the vet says, "We're making a mistake." Samantha Morris stared at the city lights twinkling through her Brooklyn apartment window, absently stroking Oliver's grey fur. The 15-year-old cat purred softly, though not with his usual vigor. At 32, she had built a comfortable life as a freelance graphic designer, with her faithful companion always by her side. But lately, something wasn't right. "What's going on with you, old friend?" she whispered, noticing how Oliver barely touched his favorite salmon dinner. Again. Her phone buzzed. A message from Marcus, her best friend since college, and now a rising star at a prestigious veterinary hospital in Boston. If you found this story interesting, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give it a like. Tell us from which city you're watching us. Let's continue. How's our patient doing? Did you schedule that checkup I recommended? Before she could reply, another message popped up from her sister, Rachel. "Mom's driving me crazy about Thanksgiving. Says you haven't RSVP'd yet. Also, when are you going to let me set you up with David from my office? He's perfect for you." Samantha sighed, pushing back her auburn hair. Her family meant well, but they never understood that her quiet life with Oliver was exactly what she wanted. Or at least, it had been until now. The next morning, while preparing for a client meeting, Samantha noticed Oliver struggling to climb onto his favorite windowsill perch. The sight twisted something in her chest. This wasn't just age. Something was wrong. At the local veterinary clinic, Dr. Emily Parker's usually cheerful face turned serious as she examined Oliver. "Samantha, we should run some tests. I'm seeing some concerning symptoms." The waiting room became Samantha's personal purgatory. Between anxious glances at her watch, she noticed a striking woman in scrubs. Dr. Claire Henderson, according to her nameplate, talking animatedly with a colleague about a revolutionary treatment protocol. "The results from Boston are promising," Claire was saying, "but the board here is still hesitant." Samantha's attention snapped back to Dr. Parker, who emerged with a thick folder. "We need to talk about Oliver's condition," she began carefully. That evening, clutching Oliver's preliminary test results, Samantha reached out to Marcus. His response was immediate. "Send me everything. I'll review it tonight." As she waited, Samantha discovered an online community of pet owners facing similar challenges. One username caught her attention, Hope for Paws Claire. The profile photo matched the doctor she'd seen earlier. A notification lit up her screen, an email from a potential client about a major project. The timing couldn't be worse, but the fee could cover Oliver's mounting medical bills. As she drafted her response, another message arrived from Marcus. "Sam, call me. I think we need to consider some alternatives to what they're proposing." Suddenly, Oliver leaped onto her desk, something he hadn't done in weeks, scattering her papers and sending her phone clattering to the floor. As she bent to retrieve it, she noticed a business card that had fallen from her folder. "Dr. Claire Henderson, veterinary research specialist." Looking at Oliver, now curled contentedly among her scattered papers, Samantha felt a spark of determination. She'd always played it safe, stayed in her comfort zone. But for Oliver, she would challenge every boundary, question every diagnosis, and fight with everything she had. What she didn't know was that her quest to help Oliver would unravel a web of professional rivalries, cutting-edge medical research, and personal revelations that would transform not just Oliver's fate, but the lives of everyone involved. The next morning, Samantha couldn't shake the memory of Dr. Claire Henderson's conversation about the Boston trials. Armed with Oliver's medical records and determination, she headed back to the clinic, hoping to catch Claire between appointments. The waiting room buzzed with activity when she arrived. Through the glass partition, she spotted Claire in an intense discussion with Dr. Parker. Their body language spoke volumes. Something wasn't right. "I won't compromise patient care for profit margins," Claire's voice carried through the partially open door. "These animals deserve better." "The board's decision is final," Dr. Parker replied tersely. "We stick to approved protocols." Samantha pretended to be absorbed in her phone as Claire stormed out, nearly colliding with her. Recognition flickered in the doctor's eyes. "You're Oliver's mom, right? The senior cat with the respiratory issues?" Claire's professional demeanor softened slightly. "How is he doing?" Before Samantha could respond, her phone lit up with a message from Marcus. "Found something interesting in those test results." Call me ASAP. Actually, Samantha began, gathering her courage, I was hoping to talk to you about alternative treatment options. I heard you mention something about trials in Boston. Claire glanced around cautiously. My office. 5 minutes. Those 5 minutes stretched eternally as Samantha observed the clinic's daily rhythm. A young intern rushed past with lab results while the receptionist juggled phones and worried pet parents. On the wall, a plaque celebrated the clinic's 20 years of service. Under it, a smaller notice about their recent corporate acquisition. Claire's office was a stark contrast to the clinic's sterile environment. Plants lined the windowsill, and pictures of recovered patients covered one wall. A worn research paper lay open on her desk. Innovative Treatments in Geriatric Feline Care by Dr. Marcus Chen. You know Marcus? Samantha couldn't hide her surprise. Dr. Chen's work is groundbreaking, Claire replied. We were residents together at Cornell, but how do you... He's my best friend from college. He's been reviewing Oliver's case. Claire's professional reserve melted into genuine interest. Show me everything. As they pored over Oliver's records, Claire's frown deepened. These initial tests, something's not adding up. The protocol they're suggesting is unnecessarily aggressive. Samantha's phone buzzed again. Marcus. Don't let them start that treatment plan. New research shows complications in 60% of cases. Claire noticed Samantha's expression. Let me guess. Marcus found the same inconsistencies I did. What's really going on here? Samantha asked. Claire hesitated before closing her office door. Since the corporate takeover, there's been pressure to push certain treatment packages, more profitable ones. I've been documenting cases where diagnoses seemed conveniently aligned with the most expensive options. Is that what's happening with Oliver? I can't say for certain, but Claire pulled up a database on her computer. Look at these patterns. The data painted a disturbing picture, but before they could dig deeper, a sharp knock interrupted them. Doctor, Parker stood in the doorway, her expression unreadable. Claire, the board meeting's been moved up. They want to discuss your research program, now. As Claire gathered her things, she slipped Samantha a card. My private number. Call me tonight. Walking home, Samantha's mind raced. Between Marcus's warnings and Claire's revelations, she felt overwhelmed. Oliver greeted her with a weak meow, climbing into her lap as she opened her laptop. A new email waited in her inbox. The big client project needed an answer today. The advance payment would cover Oliver's current treatment plan, but something felt wrong about proceeding without investigating further. Her phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. I found more cases. Meet me tomorrow at Claire. Another message followed immediately. Bring your friend Marcus's research. We need all the help we can get. Samantha looked at Oliver, peacefully sleeping despite all the uncertainty swirling around his care. One thing was clear. This had become bigger than just her beloved cat's treatment. She was standing on the edge of something that could affect countless other pets and their families. Her decision would set in motion a chain of events that would challenge not just a corporate system, but her own understanding of courage, justice, and the lengths people will go to protect those they love. The autumn wind whipped through Brooklyn's streets as Samantha hurried toward the small coffee shop where Claire had arranged to meet. Her laptop bag felt heavier than usual, loaded with Marcus's research papers and the documentation she'd spent all night organizing. Café Nouveau sat nestled between a vintage bookstore and an artisan bakery, far enough from the clinic to avoid unwanted attention. Through the window, she spotted Claire already seated in a corner booth, surrounded by papers and looking more disheveled than her usual polished self. The board meeting yesterday, Claire began without preamble, as Samantha slid into the seat. They're shutting down my research program. A barista approached with Claire's untouched coffee. Samantha ordered a chai latte, buying time to process this information. But why? Especially if the results are promising. Claire pulled out a tablet, displaying a complex spreadsheet. Follow the money. The current treatment protocols they're pushing? They're partnered with Pharma Pet Industries. The markup is astronomical. Pharma Pet? Samantha's heart skipped. They're the client I've been considering for a major marketing campaign. The coincidence hung between them as Samantha's phone buzzed. Rachel again. Mom's worried about you. Says you've been distracted. Is everything okay? Before she could respond, Another message arrived from Marcus. "Got the lab results from that Boston clinic. Call me, it's important." Claire leaned forward. "There's something else. Remember the intern who was handling lab results yesterday? She came to me this morning. Said she's noticed irregularities in how test results are being reported." Samantha's designer instincts kicked in. "Show me the data. All of it." Sometimes patterns are easier to spot visually. For the next hour, they transformed Claire's research into compelling infographics. The picture that emerged was troubling. A systematic pattern of overdiagnosis leading to unnecessarily expensive treatments. "Look at this," Samantha pointed to a cluster of cases. "All these pets showed similar symptoms to Oliver, all received the same expensive protocol, and all could have been treated with simpler, more effective methods," Claire finished. "Methods like the ones in my research program." The cafe door chimed. Dr. Parker walked in, freezing when she spotted them. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Parker turned and left abruptly, pulling out her phone. "This isn't good," Claire muttered, gathering their materials. "We need to move faster." Back home, Samantha found Oliver playing with a new toy, a gift from her elderly neighbor, Mrs. Chen. "He reminded me of my whiskers," the woman had said, "before that awful treatment at your clinic last year." Samantha's phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. "Heard you're asking questions. Meet me tomorrow. I have information. Former PharmaPet employee." As she considered the risks, her computer pinged with an email from PharmaPet, increasing their offer for the marketing campaign. The sum was staggering, enough to secure Oliver's care for years. Her phone buzzed again. Marcus had sent a voice message. "Sam, those Boston results. They confirm everything Claire suspected. But there's more. The treatment they're pushing, it's based on manipulated data. Someone inside PharmaPet is finally talking." Samantha looked at Oliver, peacefully batting at his new toy. The decision she faced wasn't just about him anymore. It was about every pet owner who trusted their local vet, every animal who deserved proper care, and every professional like Claire who fought for what was right. Her laptop screen flashed with a new email, Dr. Parker requesting an urgent meeting tomorrow morning. In her browser, the PharmaPet contract waited for her signature, the cursor blinking like a metronome counting down to a decision that would change everything. She reached for her phone, ready to respond to the mysterious whistleblower, when a notification stopped her cold. Claire's research program had just been publicly suspended, citing procedural irregularities. The pieces were falling into place, but the picture they formed was more complex than she'd imagined. Tomorrow would force her to choose between security and truth, between playing it safe and fighting for change. Samantha's fingers hovered over her keyboard, the PharmaPet contract still waiting for her signature. Oliver stretched lazily across her desk, inadvertently stepping on her phone just as it lit up with another message from the mysterious whistleblower. 7 p.m., Riverside Park, bench near the old carousel. A knock at her door startled them both. "Mrs. Chen stood there holding a manila envelope. "I found these while cleaning," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Whisker's medical records. I think you should see them." Inside the envelope, Samantha found documentation eerily similar to Oliver's case. The same escalating treatments, the same expensive medications, the same corporate letterhead. But what caught her eye was a signature at the bottom of one form. Not Dr. Parker's, but someone named Dr. Thomas Richardson, dated 3 years ago. Her phone buzzed with a text from Claire. "Emergency meeting called. Board's bringing in new medical director, Dr. Thomas Richardson, starting immediately." Samantha's heart raced as she connected the dots. She photographed Mrs. Chen's documents and sent them to both Claire and Marcus. Marcus replied instantly, "This is bigger than we thought. That treatment protocol? Richardson developed it at PharmaPet before joining clinical practice. Check the dates," Rachel called next, her voice concerned. "Sam, David from my office knows someone at PharmaPet. He says things there are complicated. Are you sure you want to take their contract?" Before Samantha could respond, another call came in, her potential client from PharmaPet. Julia Santos, marketing director, wanted to meet. "Just a casual coffee," she insisted, "to discuss the campaign's direction." At Riverside Park that evening, the autumn air carried a hint of winter. The mysterious whistleblower turned out to be a young woman in a farmer pet lab coat. "I'm Sarah," she said quietly. "I work in Richardson's research department. What they're doing, and it isn't right." Sarah shared internal documents showing how treatment protocols were modified to maximize profit, not pet wellness. "But here's what you really need to see," she said, pulling out her tablet. "Claire's research. It proves their whole approach is flawed. That's why they're so desperate to shut her down." Samantha's phone lit up with messages. Claire. "Richardson just announced a complete protocol overhaul, effective immediately." Marcus. "Got the Boston results. This changes everything. Call me." Mrs. Chen. "Found more papers. There are others like Whiskers." Julia Santos. "Looking forward to our coffee tomorrow. We have big plans for the campaign." Returning home, Samantha found Oliver playing with an old photo that had fallen from her bookshelf, a picture from her college days with Marcus. They were both smiling, holding a banner at a pet adoption event. The phrase, "Every life matters," was clearly visible. Her laptop chimed with an urgent email from Claire. "They're trying to discredit my research. But I found something in Richardson's old cases. Can you help me visualize this data? We need to make it undeniable." As she settled into work, transforming complex medical data into clear, compelling graphics, Samantha realized she was sitting at the center of a web that connected corporate greed, medical ethics, and the simple love between humans and their animal companions. Tomorrow's coffee with Julia Santos wouldn't just be about a marketing campaign anymore. It would be about choosing sides in a battle that affected countless lives, human and animal alike. Her phone buzzed one final time that night. An unknown number. "Be careful who you trust. Not everyone at Farmer Pet agrees with Richardson. Some of us want the truth to come out." The trendy Manhattan cafe where Julia Santos suggested they meet couldn't have been more different from Café Nouveau. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of bustling streets below, while executives in tailored suits discussed deals over artisanal lattes. Julia arrived precisely on time, her sleek appearance matching the setting perfectly. But something in her eyes suggested unease beneath her polished exterior. "Before we discuss the campaign," Julia began, stirring her coffee, "I need to know, have you been in contact with Dr. Henderson?" Samantha's heart skipped, but years of client meetings had taught her to maintain composure. "I've met her at the clinic. Why?" Julia glanced around before pulling out her tablet. "Because I've seen these," she said, displaying the infographics Samantha had created with Claire. "They're circulating internally at Farmer Pet. Someone leaked them to the board." Samantha's phone vibrated. A message from Claire. "Richardson's calling an all-staff meeting. Something about protocol violations. Help me back up my research data now." "Those graphics," Julia continued, lowering her voice, "they tell a story our marketing team has been struggling with for months. Some of us have been trying to push for transparency, but Richardson's influence runs deep." Another message flashed, Marcus this time. "Got access to Richardson's original research files. Sam, the data manipulation goes back years." Even before Farmer Pet, Julia noticed Samantha's distraction. "You know," she said carefully, "marketing isn't just about selling products. Sometimes it's about revealing truth." Before Samantha could respond, she spotted a familiar face entering the cafe, Dr. Parker, heading straight for their table. But instead of the confrontation Samantha expected, Parker sat down with tears in her eyes. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered. "Richardson's replacing half our staff with his own team. Claire's research, he's trying to destroy it completely." Julia's professional facade cracked. "Just like what happened in Boston 3 years ago." Samantha's phone buzzed continuously. Mrs. Chen. More neighbors came forward. Same stories, same treatments. Sarah. "Richardson's deleting files. I'm saving what I can." Claire. "They're locking me out of the system. But I have backup proof of everything." Rachel. "David found something in Farmer Pet's public records. You need to see this." The pieces started falling into place. Julia pulled out a USB drive. "Marketing sees everything," she said, "including financial records showing where the treatment protocol profits really go." Dr. Parker wiped her eyes. "I thought I was helping animals. I never knew." Samantha's design expertise suddenly seemed like the perfect tool for unraveling this web. So I need to make all of this understandable, she said. Not just to medical professionals, but to every pet owner. Julia nodded. That's exactly why I wanted to meet. The campaign they want? It's meant to bury the truth under feel-good marketing. But what if we use those same skills to reveal everything instead? Back home, Oliver greeted her with unusual energy, playfully chasing a paper ball across the floor. The sight strengthened her resolve. This wasn't just about one cat anymore. It was about changing an entire system. Her laptop chimed with an email from Marcus. Conference call in 10 minutes. Claire's here in Boston. We've found something in Richardson's old research that changes everything. As Samantha prepared for the call, she realized the true scope of what they'd uncovered. It wasn't just about overpriced treatments or corporate profits. It was about the fundamental trust between people and those they relied on to care for their beloved pets. Her phone lit up with one final message from Julia. Whatever you decide about the campaign, know that some of us at Farmer Pet will stand with you. The truth needs to come out. The conference call with Marcus and Claire revealed something none of them expected. Richardson's research history showed a pattern that stretched across 3 states, always following the same blueprint: corporate takeovers, protocol changes, and suppressed alternative treatments. Look at these dates, Marcus explained, sharing his screen. Every time his research was questioned, he'd moved to a new location, but he left a trail. Claire's voice crackled through the speaker. The Boston incident wasn't his first cover-up. I found similar cases in Chicago and Seattle. Samantha's doorbell rang. Julia Santos stood there with a thick folder. I couldn't say this over the phone, she said, stepping inside, but Richardson just called an emergency board meeting at Farmer Pet. They're voting on implementing his protocols nationwide. Oliver approached Julia cautiously, then surprisingly rubbed against her legs. She bent down to pet him, her professional composure cracking. My own cat, she whispered. I lost her to one of these protocols last year. I didn't understand why until now. Samantha's phone lit up. Dr. Parker. Richardson's replacing all our medical record software tomorrow. We'll lose access to everything. Sarah. Board meeting moved up. They're voting tonight. Mrs. Chen. More neighbors gathered in my apartment. You need to hear their stories. The weight of responsibility pressed down on Samantha's shoulders. Her living room had become command central, with Julia reviewing marketing documents, Claire on video call analyzing data, and Marcus cross-referencing case histories. Wait, Samantha said, noticing something in Julia's files. These marketing materials, the before and after photos of recovering pets, they're the same animals used in different campaigns, just edited differently. Julia nodded grimly. Standard practice under Richardson. But look at the dates. Some of these pets weren't even alive when the after photos were supposedly taken. Claire's voice cut through the speakers. That matches what we found in the clinical trials. He's been recycling data, making failed treatments look successful. A new message flashed from the local news station. Interested in story about veterinary malpractice. Sources say you have information. We need to move faster, Marcus urged. Once that software changes tomorrow, we lose our proof. Samantha looked at Oliver, peacefully watching their frantic activity from his favorite windowsill. The setting sun cast long shadows across her apartment as they worked, racing against time to compile their evidence. Julia's phone buzzed with news from Farmer Pet. Board meeting starting. Richardson presenting first. What we need, Samantha said, her designer's mind clicking into place, is to show this story so clearly that no one can deny it. Not just the data, but the real impact on pets and their families. Her laptop screen filled with messages. Rachel. David's legal team wants to help. Pro bono. Mrs. Chen. Channel 7 news van outside my building. Someone talked. Sarah. Richardson just arrived at Farmer Pet. He's carrying files from the clinic. The next hour was a blur of activity. Samantha's graphic skills transformed complex medical data into compelling visual stories. Julia's marketing expertise helped frame the narrative. Claire and Marcus provided the medical validation that made it all undeniable. Then came the message that changed everything. Dr. Parker. Richardson knows. He's ordering an immediate system upgrade at the clinic. Tonight. It's now or never, Julia said, looking at their assembled evidence. Once that system changes, all these records disappear. Samantha's phone rang, the news station again. In her lap, Oliver purred contentedly, unaware that his story had helped uncover a truth that would affect countless other pets. As they prepared to act, Samantha realized this moment would define not just her future, but the future of veterinary care in their community. The question wasn't just about exposing the truth anymore. It was about changing the system that allowed this to happen. Samantha's apartment buzzed with tension as they prepared to release their findings. Julia paced by the window, coordinating with sympathetic board members at PharmaPet. Claire's voice came through the speakers, steady despite the pressure. "The board meeting's in chaos," Julia reported, covering her phone. "Someone leaked our preliminary findings. Richardson's demanding to know the source." Samantha's laptop displayed multiple chat windows. Marcus: "Boston Medical Board requesting our documentation. Sending secure link." Sarah: "Security's clearing out the research department. They're saying it's for routine maintenance." Dr. Parker: "Staff being sent home early. System upgrade scheduled for midnight." "We need to move now," Claire insisted, "before they can alter any more records." A knock at the door made everyone freeze. Mrs. Chen stood there with a group of neighbors, each holding documentation of their pets' treatments. "The news van is still outside," she said. "They're interviewing people about their experiences." Samantha's phone rang. Rachel again. "Sam, David's legal team is ready. They say the evidence is strong enough for a formal investigation." Oliver watched from his perch as Samantha transformed her living room into a war room. Her design software created compelling visualizations of the data, while Julia crafted a narrative that would resonate with both medical professionals and pet owners. "Look at this," Julia said, pulling up PharmaPet's internal communications. "They've been preparing for something like this. There's a whole crisis management protocol." Another message flashed, an anonymous email. Richardson spotted entering PharmaPet headquarters with boxes of files. IT department on full alert. The gravity of what they were about to do hung heavy in the air. This wasn't just about exposing one person's misconduct. It was about challenging an entire system that prioritized profit over pet welfare. Samantha's phone buzzed with breaking news. "Veterinary practices under investigation. Multiple sources allege systematic malpractice." "They're running the story," Julia breathed. "Richardson can't stop it now." Claire's voice crackled through the speakers. "The medical board is reviewing my research data. They're calling for an emergency hearing." Messages flooded in. Pet owners sharing similar stories, veterinary staff offering supporting evidence, local clinics reporting pressure to adopt Richardson's protocols, media requests for interviews and documentation. Oliver jumped onto Samantha's desk, scattering papers but somehow landing on the most crucial document: the original treatment records that had started their investigation. "Wait," Samantha said, noticing something in the scattered papers. "These authorization forms, the signatures don't match the dates. They're backdated." Julia's eyes widened. "Just like the marketing materials, they've been covering their tracks all along." A text from Sarah made their hearts race. "Richardson's called outside counsel. They're preparing some kind of response." But they were ready. Months of careful documentation, countless hours of cross-referencing, and the combined expertise of medical professionals, marketing insiders, and dedicated pet owners had created an unassailable case. "It's time," Claire said firmly. "Release everything." As Samantha prepared to send their findings to the medical board, media outlets, and regulatory authorities, she felt Oliver's reassuring presence against her leg. This moment would reshape veterinary care for countless animals and their families. The sun set over Brooklyn as their evidence began spreading across news outlets and social media. There would be no stopping the truth now. The morning news exploded with headlines as Samantha's team's revelations sent shockwaves through the veterinary community. Her phone hadn't stopped buzzing since dawn. Breaking: major investigation into veterinary practices launches. Pet owners unite: mass response to treatment protocol controversy. PharmaPet board calls emergency sessions. Julia arrived early, looking exhausted but determined. "The board's split," she reported. "Half want to distance themselves from Richardson, the others are worried about liability." Samantha's laptop displayed a cascade of responses. Claire: Medical board reviewing all cases. Emergency hearing scheduled for next week. Marcus. Boston Clinic Network implementing immediate protocol reviews. Sarah. Staff walking out at multiple pharma pet facilities. Research team demanding answers. The most surprising message came from Dr. Parker. Richardson's office cleaned out overnight. No one's seen him since yesterday's chaos. Look at this, Julia said, pulling up social media feeds. Pet owners across the country were sharing similar stories, creating a movement larger than they'd anticipated. Mrs. Chen arrived with breakfast for everyone, her small act of kindness providing a moment of normalcy in the storm. The news van's back, she reported. They're interviewing more neighbors about their experiences. Oliver watched the activity from his favorite spot, seemingly stronger since starting the revised treatment plan Claire had recommended. His improvement was living proof of what proper care could achieve. Samantha's sister Rachel burst in, waving her phone. "You're trending!" David's legal team is overwhelmed with calls from other clinics wanting to come forward. The evidence they'd gathered was having an effect beyond anything they'd imagined. Veterinary practices across the country were announcing reviews of their treatment protocols. Medical boards in 3 states had launched investigations. "We need to organize this response," Samantha said, her designer's mind already plotting how to structure the information flow. "These stories need to be documented properly." Julia nodded, pulling out her laptop. PharmaPet's marketing department is in revolt. They're refusing to defend the old protocols. Messages continued pouring in. Veterinary students offering to help compile case histories, pet advocacy groups pledging support, medical researchers requesting access to Claire's findings, news organizations seeking exclusive interviews. A new email made them all pause. From Richardson's former assistant, "Have more files." "Need to talk." Claire's voice came through the speakers, excited. "The medical board just granted emergency approval for my research program. They want to fast-track the new treatment protocols." Samantha looked at the growing team in her living room, Julia crafting press responses, Mrs. Chen coordinating with neighbors, Rachel managing social media reactions. What had started as one person's concern for her cat had become a movement for change. Breaking update. Pharma Pet Board announces major protocol review. Veterinary practices nationwide pledge treatment transparency. Pet owners demand accountability in animal care. Oliver stretched lazily, unaware that his story had helped spark a revolution in veterinary care. His gentle purring provided a counterpoint to the frantic activity around him. "We're not just exposing problems anymore," Julia realized. "We're changing how the entire system works." Samantha's phone lit up with a message from Marcus. "Boston Medical Center wants to implement Claire's research protocols immediately. This is really happening." As they worked to organize the flood of information and support, Samantha felt a profound shift in the air. This wasn't just about correcting past wrongs. It was about building something better for the future. On the 3rd morning after their revelations went public, Samantha woke to an unexpected email from a Dr. Alexandra Chen, Marcus's mother and head of the National Veterinary Ethics Committee. "What you've uncovered," she wrote, "mirrors findings we've been quietly documenting for years. We need to meet." Julia arrived at Samantha's apartment with fresh developments. PharmaPet's shareholders are calling for a complete board overhaul. The stock's in freefall. Claire joined their morning video call looking energized despite the chaos. "You won't believe who contacted me. Dr. James Morrison from the International Veterinary Association. They want to use my research as a basis for new global treatment guidelines." Samantha's phone buzzed constantly. Sarah. "More PharmaPet employees coming forward. Research department found hidden trial data." Dr. Parker. "Staff meetings all morning. Everything's changing. They're implementing Claire's protocols immediately." Marcus. "Mum's flying in tomorrow. She's bringing the ethics committee's confidential files." The atmosphere in Samantha's apartment had transformed from crisis center to command center. Oliver, sensing the shift, spent more time engaging with visitors, his improved health a testament to their cause. "Look at this," Julia said, pulling up an internal PharmaPet memo. "They've had complaints about Richardson's protocols for years, but someone kept burying them." Mrs. Chen arrived with a surprise, a retired veterinarian from her building. "Dr. Thompson worked with Richardson 15 years ago," she explained. He has stories you need to hear. Dr. Thompson, his hands shaking slightly, shared documents from his private files. I tried to warn them back then, he said quietly. No one would listen. A breaking news alert caught everyone's attention. Veterinary reform movement gains international support. Medical boards across globe review treatment protocols. Pet care revolution, a new era in animal medicine. Rachel burst in, excitement evident. David's legal team just got word. 3 more state medical boards are launching investigations. Samantha's laptop chimed with messages. Claire. Research funding approved. We can expand the trials immediately. Marcus. Boston Clinic Network implementing our recommended changes, others following suit. Julia's phone rang, her contact on PharmaPet's board. After a brief conversation, she turned to the group, eyes wide. They found something in the company archives, records of similar protocols being pushed and challenged as far back as the 1990s. Mrs. Chen's neighbor network had grown into a powerful force, documenting cases and connecting affected pet owners. Their stories painted a picture of systemic issues spanning decades. We need to compile all of this, Samantha said, her designer's instincts kicking in. Show how deep these problems really go. Oliver jumped onto her desk, pushing aside papers to settle near her laptop. His presence reminded everyone of what they were fighting for, the countless beloved pets affected by these practices. Dr. Alexandra Chen's next email outlined a plan. The Ethics Committee has been building a case for years. Your evidence could finally make real change possible. As they prepared for tomorrow's meeting with the Ethics Committee, Samantha realized their movement had grown beyond exposing one person's misconduct. They were uncovering decades of systemic issues and finding allies who'd been fighting the same battle all along. Dr. Alexandra Chen's arrival transformed the energy in Samantha's apartment. The distinguished veterinarian carried herself with quiet authority, her presence commanding attention without demanding it. 20 years ago, she began, spreading documents across Samantha's dining table, we started noticing patterns. Aggressive treatments, unnecessary procedures, inflated costs, but we could never prove the connection. Julia studied the Ethics Committee files with growing amazement. These cases, they're almost identical to what we found, but they go back decades. Samantha's phone lit up with updates. Claire, International Veterinary Conference wants us to present our findings next month. Marcus, 3 more clinics implementing revised protocols. Success rates already improving. Sarah, found Richardson's original research proposals. The data manipulation started early. Oliver wandered between the gathered group, receiving gentle pets from Dr. Chen. He's responding well to the new treatment plan, she observed with professional approval. Mrs. Chen arrived with another surprise visitor, a former PharmaPet board member who'd resigned years ago. I couldn't stay quiet anymore, he explained. Not after seeing what you've uncovered. The morning brought a flood of messages. Global veterinary reform movement gains momentum. Pet care standards under review worldwide. Medical boards unite for treatment protocol reform. Rachel burst in with news from David's legal team. They've found a pattern in clinic acquisitions. Every time Richardson moved to a new area, corporate buyouts followed. Dr. Chen nodded grimly. We tracked similar patterns, but corporate lawyers always blocked our investigations. Julia's laptop displayed new internal PharmaPet documents, years of buried complaints, dismissed concerns, and silenced whistleblowers. The system wasn't just broken, Samantha realized. It was deliberately designed this way. Claire's voice came through the speakers, excitement evident. The medical board just granted approval for a nationwide study of our alternative protocols. They want to fast-track implementation. Dr. Chen pulled out one final folder, her personal research from the past 2 decades. This isn't just about changing protocols, she explained. It's about restructuring how we approach animal care entirely. Oliver, as if sensing the importance of the moment, jumped onto the table and settled among the papers, purring contentedly. Mrs. Chen's neighbor network had expanded beyond Brooklyn, connecting with pet owners across the country. Their stories painted a picture of systematic issues that crossed state lines and spanned generations. We need to document everything, Samantha said, her design skills already conceptualizing how to present this complex history. Show how these patterns developed and evolved. Messages continued flooding in. Dr. Parker, staff meeting just ended. New protocols being implemented immediately. Sarah, more farmer pet employees stepping forward. Research department found hidden files. Marcus, Boston network reporting dramatic improvements with revised treatments. The afternoon brought unexpected support. Veterinary schools requesting curriculum changes, medical boards seeking consultation, and international clinics asking for guidance. Dr. Chen watched the activity with quiet satisfaction. This is what we've worked toward for years, she said softly. Real systematic change. The morning news brought an unexpected development. Major veterinary supply companies were announcing voluntary protocol reviews, citing evolving industry standards. Farmer Pet's stock had stabilized as new leadership pledged transparency. Look at this, Julia said, scanning industry reports. Clinics across the country are reporting dramatic improvements with the revised protocols. The data's undeniable. Dr. Chen studied the numbers with practiced eyes. These success rates, they're even better than we hoped. Samantha's phone buzzed with updates. Claire, International Veterinary Association requesting full documentation. They're considering global protocol changes. Marcus, 7 more state medical boards launching investigations. The momentum's building. Sarah, Farmer Pet's new board reviewing all research programs. They want to meet with us. Oliver stretched lazily on his window perch, his improved health a daily reminder of why they'd started this journey. Mrs. Chen arrived with more neighbors, each carrying documentation of their pets' recoveries under the new treatments. The local news wants to do a follow-up story, Rachel announced, phone in hand. They're calling it the Pet Care Revolution. Dr. Parker sent an encouraging update. Staff morale improving daily. Patients showing remarkable progress under new protocols. The apartment had become a hub of activity, with experts from various fields contributing to their growing database. Veterinary researchers analyzing treatment outcomes, legal teams documenting systemic changes, medical boards reviewing certification standards, pet advocacy groups coordinating outreach efforts. We need to think bigger, Dr. Chen suggested, spreading out new research proposals. This isn't just about correcting past mistakes, it's about redefining animal care standards. Julia's industry contacts reported sweeping changes. Major suppliers revise treatment guidelines, veterinary schools update curricula, clinical trials show promise with alternative protocols. Mrs. Chen's neighbor network had evolved into a nationwide support system, connecting pet owners with resources and information. Their stories became powerful testimony to the importance of ethical veterinary care. Claire's voice crackled through the speakers. The medical board's emergency session approved our full proposal. Implementation starts next week. Samantha's design work had transformed complex medical data into accessible information, helping pet owners understand their options and rights. Her infographics were being adopted by clinics nationwide. This is what real change looks like, Dr. Chen observed, watching the activity around her. Not just policy changes, but a fundamental shift in how we approach animal care. Oliver wandered between visitors, accepting gentle pets and treats, his recovery inspiring others to share their own stories of hope and healing. Messages continued pouring in. International clinics requesting protocol information, veterinary students offering to volunteer research facilities, proposing collaboration, media outlets seeking expert commentary. The afternoon brought another surprise. A delegation from the State Veterinary Board arrived unannounced, carrying boxes of historical records that supported their findings. We've been collecting evidence for years, they explained, waiting for the right moment to act. A month had passed since their initial revelations, and the transformation in veterinary care was becoming evident. Samantha sat at her desk, reviewing the latest data, while Oliver played with a new interactive toy. His energy levels notably improved under the revised treatment plan. The numbers are remarkable, Julia announced, reviewing clinic reports. Treatment success rates up 40% nationwide. Cost efficiency improved by 35%. Dr. Chen nodded approvingly. But it's the quality of life improvements that matter most. Look at these recovery statistics. Messages flowed steadily. Claire, research symposium confirmed for next month. International attendance expected. Marcus. Boston network implementing expanded wellness programs, other cities following suit. Sarah. PharmaPet's new research division wants to collaborate on preventive care protocols. Mrs. Chen arrived with coffee and a thick folder. More success stories from the neighborhood network. The community support group has gone national. Rachel burst in, excitement evident. David's legal team just secured funding for a nationwide pet owner advocacy program. They want us involved in the planning. The apartment, still serving as their command center, buzzed with purposeful energy. Dr. Parker's morning update brought more good news. Staff morale at an all-time high. Patient recovery rates exceeding expectations. Industry changes continued accelerating. Veterinary schools adopt ethics-first curriculum. Global Standards Committee endorses new protocols. Pet insurance companies revise coverage plans. Julia's phone rang, the new PharmaPet board requesting a meeting. They want to establish an independent oversight committee. They're asking for our input. Samantha's design work had evolved into a comprehensive educational platform, helping clinics communicate complex medical information to pet owners effectively. Oliver jumped onto her desk, knocking over a stack of papers. Among them, she noticed something striking: before and after charts showing dramatic improvements in treatment outcomes across all age groups. Dr. Chen reviewed the data with growing satisfaction. This is more than reform, she observed. It's a complete paradigm shift in animal care. The Neighbor Network had transformed into a powerful advocacy organization, with chapters opening in cities nationwide. Their combined voices were reshaping policy at every level. Messages continued arriving. Claire. Medical Board expanding research funding. New studies approved. Marcus. Veterinary conference attendance breaking records. Everyone wants to learn the new protocols. Sarah. More clinics reporting improved patient outcomes, staff satisfaction rising. The afternoon brought unexpected visitors, representatives from international veterinary associations seeking guidance on implementing similar changes globally. Your model is proving revolutionary, they explained. We want to adapt it worldwide. As Samantha watched Oliver playing contentedly, she realized their movement had grown beyond anything they'd imagined. What began as one person's concern for her cat had sparked a transformation in how society approached animal care. The autumn leaves were turning golden outside Samantha's Brooklyn window as she reviewed the latest global implementation reports. Oliver, more energetic than he'd been in years, batted playfully at falling leaves through the glass. "Look at these adoption rates," Julia said, spreading new data across the table. Over 80% of clinics nationwide have implemented the revised protocols, international numbers climbing weekly. Dr. Chen studied the statistics with quiet pride. But here's what really matters. She pointed to patient outcome charts. Quality of life improvements across all demographics. Messages arrived steadily. Claire. Research symposium expanded to 3 days. Overflow registration. Marcus. Teaching hospitals reporting unprecedented success with new training programs. Sarah. PharmaPet's transformation complete. New ethics board establishing industry standards. Mrs. Chen arrived with her usual morning update, but today was different. The community support network is going digital, she announced. We're launching an app to connect pet owners with resources. Rachel rushed in, barely containing her excitement. The legal framework is set. David's team just finalized the Pet Care Bill of Rights. It's heading to state legislatures. The apartment, though still their meeting hub, had evolved into something more, a think tank for the future of veterinary care. Dr. Parker's updates now came with teaching hospital statistics. Student applications up 200%. Ethics course enrollment at capacity. Patient satisfaction metrics exceeding goals. Industry transformations continued accelerating. Global Veterinary Alliance adopts universal standards. Pet insurance revolution. Prevention first coverage. Medical boards unite for international certification. Julia's corporate contacts reported systematic changes. Every major supplier has revised their protocols. The old system is officially obsolete. Samantha's design work had become a template for clinical communication worldwide. Her infographics now appeared in veterinary textbooks, helping new generations understand ethical care principles. Oliver watched from his favorite perch as visitors came and went, his recovery story having inspired countless others. The neighbor network shared similar success stories daily, each one reinforcing the importance of their work. Dr. Chen reviewed implementation reports with growing satisfaction. "We're seeing changes I never thought possible in my lifetime," she admitted. Messages kept flowing. Claire. Research grants approved for 5 new studies. Prevention-focused protocols showing remarkable results. Marcus. Boston network expanding wellness programs to underserved communities. Sarah. More clinics reporting record recovery rates. Staff retention at all-time high. The afternoon brought a surprise video call from the International Veterinary Congress. "Your protocols are being adopted in developing nations," they reported. "The impact is beyond our expectations." As Samantha watched Oliver playing with his new interactive toys, she realized their movement had become something permanent, a fundamental shift in how society valued and cared for its animal companions. As winter approached Brooklyn, Samantha's apartment had transformed from command center to legacy planning hub. Oliver dozed contentedly nearby, his improved health a daily reminder of their journey's impact. "The numbers are extraordinary," Julia announced, reviewing the latest global data. "Treatment success rates have stabilized at record highs across 6 continents." Dr. Chen nodded thoughtfully. "But look at this," she pointed to new research. "It's the preventive care metrics that show the real revolution." Updates flowed continuously. Claire. Research symposium expanding to regional conferences. Demand overwhelming. Marcus. Training programs now standard in veterinary schools worldwide. Sarah. Pharma pets transformation inspiring other corporations. Industry-wide standards rising. Mrs. Chen arrived with her tablet, showing off the new community support app in action. 10,000 downloads in the first week, she beamed. Pet owners connecting globally. Rachel burst in with breakthrough news. The Pet Care Bill of Rights passed in 3 more states. David's team projects nationwide adoption within 18 months. The apartment buzzed with activity as experts gathered to plan the next phase. Veterinary educators designing new curricula, international coordinators adapting protocols, research teams planning long-term studies, community leaders developing outreach programs. "Look at this trend," Julia said, pulling up long-term projections. "We're seeing systemic changes that could last generations." Dr. Parker's morning update reflected the transformation. New graduates requesting ethical practice placements, patient outcomes exceeding all benchmarks. Industry evolution continued. Global Standards Authority establishes permanent oversight. Pet insurance companies adopt lifetime wellness focus. Veterinary ethics now core certification requirement. Oliver stretched lazily on his window perch, watching snowflakes begin to fall. His recovery story had become a case study in veterinary textbooks, inspiring new approaches to senior pet care. Samantha's design work had evolved into a comprehensive educational platform, now used in clinics worldwide. "We're seeing better understanding and compliance from pet owners," reports showed. Communication barriers breaking down. Dr. Chen reviewed the latest implementation data with satisfaction. "The change is self-sustaining now," she observed. "Each success strengthens the foundation." Messages continued arriving. Claire. Research network expanding to developing nations, results exceeding expectations. Marcus. Boston model being replicated globally, success rates consistent across cultures. Sarah. More clinics reporting record wellness metrics. Prevention programs showing long-term impact. The afternoon brought unexpected news. Major medical institutions were adapting their pet care protocols for human wellness programs. "Your communication model is revolutionary," they explained. "It transcends species." As snow fell outside, Samantha watched Oliver playing with his favorite toy, his energy belying his age. Their movement had grown beyond reform. It had become a new standard for caring, compassion, and medical ethics. Spring blossoms dotted the Brooklyn streets as Samantha prepared for the International Veterinary Conference's keynote address. Oliver, now a symbol of their movement's success, lounged regally on his favorite windowsill. "The 5-year projections are remarkable," Julia said, reviewing the latest data. "Every measurable metric shows sustained improvement." It's not just change anymore, it's evolution. Dr. Chen smiled, scanning global implementation reports. Look at these adoption rates in developing regions. The ripple effect keeps growing. Messages arrive steadily. Claire. Research network now spans 47 countries. Results consistent across all demographics. Marcus. Training programs becoming standard in medical schools beyond veterinary medicine. Sarah. Corporate ethics boards implementing expanded oversight. Industry self-regulation exceeding expectations. Mrs. Chen arrived with her grandson, a first-year veterinary student. He chose this field because of our movement, she said proudly. The next generation is carrying it forward. Rachel rushed in with milestone news. Pet Care Bill of Rights now law in 35 states. Global adoption frameworks in development. The apartment, though still their gathering place, had evolved into an informal think tank. Experts from various fields regularly gathered to plan future initiatives. Medical researchers exploring new frontiers, ethics committees developing enhanced standards, technology teams improving monitoring systems, community leaders expanding support networks. These success stories keep coming, Julia noted, scrolling through reports. Each one builds on the last. Dr. Parker's update reflected the transformation. New clinic model being replicated worldwide. Patient outcomes setting new benchmarks monthly. Industry evolution continued accelerating. Global standards now universal in developed nations. Prevention-first approach shows long-term success. Ethics-based care becoming medical standard. Oliver watched the activity with characteristic calm, his improved health a testament to their work. His story, now part of veterinary curricula worldwide, continued inspiring new approaches to animal care. Samantha's educational platforms had evolved into a global standard, breaking down barriers between medical professionals and pet owners. Understanding leads to better care, the data showed consistently. Dr. Chen reviewed implementation reports with quiet satisfaction. The movement has taken on a life of its own, she observed. It's self-sustaining, self-improving. Messages flowed continuously. Claire. Research breakthroughs accelerating. Prevention protocols showing unprecedented success. Marcus. Boston model adapted for human care facilities. Results promising. Sarah. More regions reporting record wellness statistics. Long-term impact evident. The afternoon brought surprising news. Major medical institutions were incorporating their ethical framework into human patient care. Your model transcends traditional boundaries, they explained. It's reshaping how we think about healthcare entirely. As spring sunshine filled the apartment, Samantha watched Oliver playing with neighborhood children who regularly visited. Their movement had become more than reform. It had transformed into a new understanding of care, compassion, and connection. 1 year to the day since their first revelation, Samantha stood at her apartment window, watching Brooklyn bloom in the spring sunshine. Oliver, defying all early prognoses, playfully chased a sunbeam across the floor. "The final numbers are in," Julia announced, her voice soft with wonder. Every target exceeded, every goal surpassed. But the real success stories aren't in the data. Dr. Chen nodded, reviewing a thick folder of testimonials. They're in the millions of lives changed, human and animal alike. The morning's updates painted a picture of lasting change. Claire. Research network now self-sustaining. New breakthroughs weekly. Marcus. Training model adopted by medical schools worldwide. Sarah. Corporate ethics standards now industry baseline. Mrs. Chen arrived with a surprise, a bound collection of success stories from their neighborhood network, now published in multiple languages. "Our little community changed the world," she said simply. Rachel burst in with final confirmation. Pet Care Bill of Rights adopted nationwide. International framework launching next month. The apartment where it all began hummed with quiet energy as their core team gathered for reflection. Veterinary pioneers planning future innovations, ethics committees drafting enhanced standards, research teams exploring new frontiers, community leaders expanding support systems. "Look how far we've come," Julia mused, comparing their first documents with current standards. "Yet it feels like we're just beginning." Dr. Parker's update captured the transformation. New generation of veterinarians graduating, their dedication to ethical care gives me hope. The industry they'd helped reshape continued evolving. Global Standards Authority celebrates first anniversary. Prevention-based care shows lasting impact. Ethics-first approach becomes medical norm. Oliver, whose story had started it all, curled contentedly in Samantha's lap as she reviewed their journey. His recovery had inspired a movement that transformed animal care forever. Samantha's educational platforms had become the global standard, bridging gaps between medical science and compassionate care. Understanding creates connection, the studies consistently showed. Dr. Chen smiled, watching the next generation of veterinary students arriving for mentorship. This is how change sustains itself, she observed. Through teaching, learning, growing. The final messages of the day arrived. Claire. New research center opening. Focus on integrative care approaches. Marcus. Boston model now standard in medical training worldwide. Sarah. Success metrics stabilized at new heights. The new normal exceeds our original goals. As evening approached, Samantha held Oliver close, remembering the fear and uncertainty that had started their journey. What began as one person's fight for her beloved pet had blossomed into a revolution in care, compassion, and connection. The sun set over Brooklyn, casting golden light across the room where it all began. Their movement had become more than reform. It had become a legacy of hope, healing, and humanity. Dear listeners, we hope Samantha and Oliver's journey has touched your hearts. Their story reminds us that change begins with a single act of love and courage. To continue experiencing such transformative narratives, subscribe to our channel and click the like button below. Share your own stories of hope and healing in the comments. Your voice matters in this ongoing journey of compassion and care. Join our community as we continue exploring stories that celebrate the deep bonds between humans and their animal companions. Together, we're writing new chapters in the story of care and connection.